a.m. as we wind up on what is making headlines in the papers. Before I get into our conversation, this is where we left it off. Raila, Koome clashing over protest deaths. Police boss claiming opposition leaders hired bodies from mortuaries to indicate excessive use of force by the police. But also, still on the same breath, it is what is captured on the Taifa Leo as well. Wafu wakanga Koome. Zaidi ya watu 50 walithibitishwa kufa kwa risasi na wadau mbalimbali yakiwemo mashirika ya kutetea haki za binadamu. All right, that's on the second page. But Koome afukewa kuwakejeli wafu. That's the Inspector General of Police with some of those allegations that he has made that the opposition hired bodies from, mortuaries to appear as though there was excessive use of police and laid those bodies in the streets during the protests, during the anti-government protests. Diana, so this is happening. I know we've already talked about the issue of police brutality and the excessive use of force by the police, extrajudicial killings. There have been many statements that have been made by the civil society. But this is the first time I think we're actually hearing from the Inspector General of Police. There were concerns of where he was when all these allegations were being made on the use of force by police. Yeah. So this is the first statement he's making, and he says, look, it appears, well, he doesn't really name opposition, but of course it is in that sense indicates opposition leaders by saying senior citizens colluded with some mortuaries to hire dead bodies to come and lay them on the streets to appear as though, these are people who have died due to police brutality. But in essence, what he says is it's just a ploy.
I think this is very, very tragic coming from the Inspector General. And this is the first Inspector General since the Constitution 2010, where he's been appointed, and it has also been declared. Whether that is the right position or not, the executive, the presidency has said there is police independence, and there have been even attempts to separate the purse of the police from that of the Ministry of Interior. So he holds a very, very high responsibility when it comes to policing in Kenya, and when there are reports of people who have died, what he ought to be bringing is a comprehensive report, not dancing on people's graves, stepping on people's very, very fresh wounds, because families are mourning. Others are in hospitals paying bills for police or bullet wounds. And even within that, some police are nursing injuries as well. At this point, what we expect from the Inspector General is an investigatory report that is already compiled and ready to be filed with IPOA or with the ODPP. So at this point, for him to be making...
That's a very concerning statement coming from the police boss himself.
And it signals that he will undermine the entire process entirely. So today, I hope we will see a comprehensive response from IPOA and from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, who at this point are the people we would rely on to help us clarify and support with the investigation. But for him to have kept quiet and now come tell us bodies were hired and placed on the table, we are actually an African community. How we handle dead bodies, those are not, they have never been decoy for any demonstration. That is a life that has been lost. And I know our colleagues in civil society have been undertaking very, very, very detailed and deliberate documentation of all the people who have lost their lives. I wish he even asked for those reports and offered counter reports as opposed to making such disdainful comments.
Right. Yeah. Caroline, your thoughts on this and what you make of these statements coming from the police boss himself, Inspector General, who's, essentially supposed to give an idea of really how the situation was and a clear report, but really still concerning, because if it's true, then that would be something that needs to be looked into.
I think it's a new law. I mean, we keep thinking lower and lower in terms of how we respond to public issues,
right.
But this one, I think, ranks very low on the scale, mainly because, one, you're talking about dead people, you're talking about families that are bereaved, families that are mourning their dead. So really what you would have expected is civil society organizations have come out and issued a report, statistics, data on the numbers where those
and we have
happened.
Seen some data we've seen from Amnesty International,
exactly,
Kenya,
yeah. And say
well.
These are the people who died, these are the people who were shot, these are the families that are bereaving, these are the families that we've spoken to. So what we would expect from the Inspector General then is a counter report to say that, yes, we've seen those reports, but this is our data. If indeed they have evidence that those numbers of people were not shot by police, then they should be able to say, as far as we are concerned, this is the data. But it begs the question of impunity, really, because it's almost asking Kenyans, this is what I'm saying, what can you do about it? Beyond that, though, I think it also begs the question as to the role of IPOA, because at this point it is actually IPOA that should be issuing statements and saying, this is what we have seen, these are the number of policemen that we are holding to account, this is what we have investigated, and this is what we recommend as action.
Right.
So for as long as that is not there, then it shows lack of willingness to even listen or to engage or to provide contrarian evidence, to show that this is what is informing our position, but just a blanket statement. And really to talk about families dragging people out of morgues, I think that's a terrible assertion to make if it's not backed by any evidence.
Yeah. Right. Suleiman.
I think I would say our Inspector General is mostly silent. He rarely addresses the media, he rarely speaks to Kenyans. Whenever he does, he speaks and he emerges as a person who doesn't even know what he's saying, unfortunately. When you talk about hiring of dead bodies, I'm asking myself, what will that mother and father who have lost their sons and daughters during the protest, how will they feel? I think it's a very insensitive statement that points to the fact that there is lack of accountability for someone who holds such a high office, an office such as the office of the Inspector General of Police. So I think the question of accountability of those who are holding office, the kind of statements they make, when it is reckless, I think they need to be accountable for that. He I think yesterday made a pedestrian statement without any evidence showing that, to show that maybe dead bodies were hired, and I think that is quite shameful. So in my view, I think I will say that during the protest, I have seen people who are crying, people who have lost lives, moms and dads who are crying. We have seen a young Kenyan who was actually shot 9 times, who is alive today. So if he tells us that these were all dead bodies that were removed from the morgue, who killed those people? Were these people imported from another country? These were people who have actually left their families in the morning, and in the evening they could not come back to their homes. So it is a very insensitive and reckless statement, and I think something serious ought to be done. For example, the Committee on National Administration and Security of the National Assembly ought to summon someone like the Inspector General of Police and ask him the rightful questions. He ought to show approve. One of the actually hurtful things or hurtful statements that I've actually been so uncomfortable with is when he said, there are people who have actually petitioned us at The Hague, some who are moving to courts here in Kenya, but that is not important for me, and literally they will do nothing to me. I think when he assumes such a role, and when he sees himself as it is starting with him and ending with him, it is quite dangerous.
Would you say this is akin to him making perhaps just a political statement as opposed to his role as Inspector General?
We understand that he's not supposed to make any political statement.
Right.
He is accountable to the people of Kenya. Most importantly, there were National Police Service officers who were beside him, actually senior officials. And he said that he even applauds the National Police Service for the, according to him, good job they have done. Is he encouraging them to butcher and kill more Kenyans? What is very important for him is to sit down with various stakeholders. Right. He needs to even sit down with the civil side organizations, see their report, share with him his side of the story, compare notes, and see how the people of Kenya will get better security apparatus.
All right. And perhaps, yes, Dan.
If you look at the object of the National Police Service is to strive for the highest standards of professionalism. Right. Are professional even, prevent corruption or comply with constitutional standards of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and the highest possible standards of competency, integrity and respect to human rights and dignity. So I hope he remembers the core objects and functions of the National Police Service, even as he continues to incite the police.
And perhaps we'll be looking forward to hearing what the Independent Policing Oversight Authority has to say on this particular matter. I know they were keen to get a statement as well from the Inspector General of Police. I'll just wind up on the paper.